Well, hi there. Well, I'm dog sitting, so I've got two dogs with me today, but I wanted to talk about measuring our exercise and some of the methods that we can use in order to determine our intensity of exercise and to determine how many calories we're using with exercise. So oftentimes we have things like our watch, and sometimes that watch could be something like an iWatch, or it could be like a Fitbit or something that we have to help us determine how many steps we get and what is our heart rate. Well, we know that there's a vast difference between the effectiveness of some of these different tools that we can use. Now, if you haven't already, I encourage you to read a book by Dr. Andy Galpin, and it is called Unplugged, because I think sometimes we get so focused and concerned about what the number on the watch says, and we sometimes miss those internal signals. And what really helps us to be not just in tune with our body, but to really understand some of our physiologic signals rather than just relying on one number. But where are these tools and different maybe things that we can use to help us determine our intensity the most helpful? Well, there's a few applications. If you're trying to maybe get into a particular heart rate zone to target maybe a percentage of your heart rate maximum, that can be really helpful to help you get into the right zone of training. Because sometimes, let's face it, we can get a little lazy, and having some objective numbers can help us push us into the right category. Now, we know something like a wrist monitor is going to be maybe fairly accurate. At rest, they tend to be a lot better than at exercise, and especially better than high intensity exercise. That's when things start to get a little bit dicey in terms of the actual quality of the information that we're getting back on these devices. So we can give a lot of faith that at rest, our devices are probably going to be fairly accurate. Now, if you have an iWatch, this is just what I wear all the time. I like to just buy an extra Bluetooth polar heart rate strap that you can just put on. It flies right against your skin. This is kind of what the backside looks like. You get this portion wet, put it right against your skin, kind of right on your bra line for women, or kind of right at your chest bone, the base of your chest bone for men. And that's where we can get a little bit more accurate information, because it's going to be Bluetoothing this information right into your watch. So we know that our heart rate's going to be probably more accurate than if we were to just use the watch alone. But we also hear a lot of people say, well, you know, I selected the activity I was doing and it said that I burned 500 calories during exercise. Is that accurate? Can we count on it? Well, I think sometimes we can get so hung up on the numbers that we forget about how to really use our internal cues to measure the overall caloric expenditure that we had during a given activity. Now, if you're trying to tightly measure your calories that you're intaking, I give you a high five, because all of that's so important. But if we're trying to really tightly measure our caloric expenditure to know how many calories we can eat back, I think we're gonna miss the forest through the trees and really miss the overall point. So if you're taking a lower intensity class or a higher intensity class and you wanna see the difference, it'll probably give you a pretty good, accurate, big picture value of how that has gone from your body's overall caloric expenditure, but it's probably not going to be the most accurate thing for every single session every time. So don't write those numbers down and eat those calories back. Most of the time your devices are going to fail for a many number of reasons. Sometimes they take a sampling rate of 15 to 30 seconds, every 15 or every 30 seconds, that they would take a new heart rate, and especially if you're doing something that is changing intensities on like an interval scale, that can miss a lot of the data. And it can lead to inaccurate algorithms, because it's pulling off of that heart rate for that moment in time and assuming it's happening over that interval. So take it with a grain of salt. Understand that there's some positives and there's some limitations to all of our wearable technology. And if you're doing something like steps, or you're measuring your step count, it can really push us towards positive behaviors. I think we just want to make sure that we're using them to help drive positive changes and not using these devices to help justify some of our negative behaviors. So if you're wanting something to help to give you some feedback about maybe standing up or moving more often or getting in additional steps, use those and know that they're probably not going to be perfectly accurate, but it'll help drive us towards better behavior. So have a wonderful day. I do encourage you, this is my absolute favorite heart rate monitor, so if you would like to grab one for yourself, I think they're around $38 on Amazon, something like that. Have a great day. See ya.